After spending over a year cooped up in our tiny apartments due to the global health situation, the time has almost arrived for international travel to become part and parcel of normal life again. And what better to do with this newfound freedom than to book an all-expense-paid vacation to an exotic and distant destination? But rather than falling into the tourist trap of traveling to a country the majority of the world has been, why not become a connoisseur by checking out a paradise that remains hidden? So whether you're in the process of booking an international holiday or just want to know more about the country that next to nobody's talking about, stay tuned, as we're about to take a look at everything that you could possibly do in Tuvalu. You won't even believe some of these facts. Before we get into the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as well as turn on post notifications so that you won't miss any videos we put up. Where is Tuvalu? For those that don't know, Tuvalu is a small country in the South Pacific, which actually achieved its independence from the UK back in 1978. Made up of around 9 atolls, which house an impressive amount of coral reefs, Tuvalu is the definition of an island paradise that, for some other reason or another, no tourists are talking about at the moment. In fact, despite being one of the least visited countries in the world, Tuvalu has some of the most unique features that end up making it an unforgettable destination, insofar as both historical and nature are concerned. When it comes to population density, Tuvalu has actually been calculated as being the second smallest country in the world, with only 11,000 citizens calling it home. And with its square meterage coming in at just 26 square kilometers, Tuvalu has also grabbed the title of 4th smallest country in size, beaten only by Monaco, Nauru, and the Vatican. As such, you can probably imagine traveling the entire island system and experiencing everything that it has to offer in just under a week, making a trip to Tuvalu different from any other place that you can book tickets to right now. The main island, where most Tuvaluians live, actually has just one road that crosses it from end to end, making navigation extremely easy, all things considered. Another surprising fact about the geography of this small country is that the width of the actual island measures only a few meters wide at times, giving you an incredible view and making you feel like you've actually been floating in the middle of the ocean. The economics of Tuvalu, perfect for those who want an adventure away from the hustling and bustling cities of home. Tuvalu is considered by most to be the least developed country in the world and has a gross domestic product of just over $40 million, which is less than any other publicly traded company in most European stock exchanges. But while this might be true, we believe it is important to point out that Tuvalu is also constantly running on a budgetary surplus, showing just how innovative the citizens are at keeping things on point while remaining on such a staunch budget. In a twist that nobody expected, Tuvalu's main source of income does come from the selling of stamps to phylactic collectors who travel far and wide to bask in some of the curious stamps that the country makes available for sale. Other than stamps, the country makes its hard-earned income by selling fishing licenses and copra to neighboring countries. Tuvalu has even listed the country's TV domain to a Canadian company for income, which is definitely a first. The fear of sinking. Something that makes the country so attractive to travel connoisseurs is the inevitability that one of these days, Tuvalu will be disappearing from the face of the earth due to the climate risk we currently find ourselves in. If global warming persists and we can't work together to stop the sea levels from rising, then Tuvalu is set to be known as the modern-day example of Atlantis, sadly disappearing below the tides like its mythological counterpart. This is, unfortunately, so much of a reality that the Tuvalu Trust Fund was set up quite a few years ago as a safety net in case the country does indeed sink below the world's waves. This is unsurprisingly one of the things that Tuvalu is best known for, and since it consists of mostly flat land with its highest point being only 4 meters above sea level, the risk of disappearance is almost certain. Speaking to the inhabitants, you will hear stories of luxury beaches with silky sands that used to line the island nation. These have, however, become submerged and now serve as a reminder to what the country of Tuvalu is set to experience in the future. So, if you're looking to experience a country that will most likely disappear from the earth in the future, make sure to check out Tuvalu while you can. Temperature control. Since Tuvalu is, geographically speaking, halfway between the islands of Hawaii and Australia, and thus in line with the equator, you can expect a temperature that is practically the same all year round. So, if you are indeed gearing yourself up for an adventure of a lifetime by visiting the country, then make sure to prepare yourself for high temperatures, precipitation, and humidity. Suffice it to say, it's kind of a good thing that you'll be surrounded by the ocean, as it can get incredibly hot when walking around the country. And due to the fact that the island is so small, well, you're not really gonna have to walk more than a few minutes to find the nearest nearest beach. Now that is called location. The complex history of Tuvalu. Tuvalu was formerly called the Ellis Islands and, as stated earlier, was until 1978 considered to be a colony of the British Empire. Polynesians populated the island in the 14th century, which resulted in words like Talofa, which is used in both Tongan and Samoan, being adapted into the Tuvalu language that is now used across the nation. As far as culture and political structure goes, Tuvalu is actually incredibly similar to Samoa, both sharing a common Polynesian familiarity. The island was spotted by Western explorers in the 16th century when a Spaniard by the name of Alvaro Mendia de Neira saw it. But he clearly wasn't the only one who colonized and named the nation. The feat goes to a British MP by the name of Edward Ellis, who arrived in 1819. This ended up leading to the kidnapping of the islanders in the 19th century, who were then used as slaves until the UK declared it a procreate in 1892, together with Kirbatia, which was then known as the Gilbert Islands. And although this is all behind them now, it's looking like the citizens of Tuvalu will be the first refugees of climate change, making history once more in the 21st century. That is, unless we can bring an end to the senseless actions that only serve to increase sea levels as we speak. Who will save the Tuvaluians? As we mentioned earlier, the Tuvalu Trust Fund was established quite a few years ago to deal with the financial implications of having to relocate from a sinking country. But the question that remains is, where would the Tuvaluians be welcomed as citizens after this eventual swallowing of the ocean? Well, in exchange for fishing rights, the Prime Minister of Australia has actually awarded full citizenship to them. The Fiji have also offered up some land on its shores, which the small population can relocate to. This wouldn't be the first time the citizens of Tuvalu have had to relocate, though, with the first relocation taking place after World War II erupted, resulting in a number of inhabitants being sent to the Kiribati Islands. It would, however, be the first relocation due to a result of climate change. The sinking of Tuvalu also brings with it some complex questions, like whether the country will still be represented in the United Nations and whether citizens of the now sunken island will still hold rights over the waters above them. To answer these questions, we'll have to wait for the somber future that awaits the nation, as it's usually the case when it comes to answering complex questions. Having a plan ahead of time. Surprisingly enough, the main island of Fongfale is extremely small and underdeveloped, but the majority of visitors choose to stay there since that is the only airport of the country. It's also pretty difficult to visit the other atolls in the nation, with boats that depart on a 2-week basis being the only means of assessing them. You'll also find no ATM and credit card facilities on the island. In other words, you need to bring as much cash with you as possible. What does make this easier is the fact that the banks do indeed exist in Tuvalu, and as such, we'll be able to exchange your foreign currency. In other words, traveling to Tuvalu is more like a simple vacation and takes copious amounts of planning to be able to make the trip work. You're not only going to need to know how much cash to bring along to purchase the things you want and see the sites on your list, but you'll also need to plan according to the ferry schedules if you do indeed on planning to visit other atolls in the island. And while some people do find this a little bit complex, Tuvalu is really aimed at the connoisseurs that have been bitten by the travel bug, offering more of an experience than anything else. Tuvalu's open runway. As small as the nation is, Tuvalu actually has something that no other country possesses. Built during World War II by the Americans after conquering the island before the Japanese could lay claim to it, visitors will marvel at the only open international runway, which is used by inhabitants for everything during most of the week. This runway makes Tuvalu a lot more accessible than its neighboring countries, which, for the most part, are only reachable by taking unreliable ocean routes. Now, what do we mean by an open airstrip, though? Well, this means that while there is no air traffic in the immediate vicinity, locals and tourists alike are able to play volleyball, football, and snap a few crazy pictures for their Instagram accounts. Because of the general lack of lighting when not in use, there also makes for an incredible area to watch the Milky Way. So for all those astrology geeks out there, don't forget to bring your telescope. Exploring the Funafuti Conservation Area. Described by many people as the highlight of their trip to Tuvalu, there's a visit to the Funafuti Conservation Area where you can find just north of the runway everyone frequents. The area consists of a small patch of sand with a number of picnic tables and benches which are in full sight of the nation's port. Just hanging out in this area is both relaxing and fun, but talk a while over to the conservation area and you will find fluffy pink and white floral beaches with not a single soul in sight. Suffice it to say, you're not going to get a better feel for being trapped on a deserted island than this. But don't get going lost now, as both fishing and staying over in the conservation area overnight is strictly forbidden. So, what do you think of Tuvalu? Would you be willing to give the little island nation a chance? Let us know in the comment section down below. And until next time, guys, we'll see you later.